Ladies and gentlemen, damas and caballeros, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I can't tell you how to make $1 million. I can't tell you how to make $3,000 a month in passive income. And I can't tell you how to beat the S&P 500. And to be completely real, I don't think that anybody on YouTube can tell you how to do that. But I can tell you how to make small positive impacts in your finances. This is not a get-rich-quick channel. This is a realistic channel, and although what I say won't make you a millionaire, I can almost guarantee you that you can apply a lot of this stuff in your life. Now, I am a firm believer in the power of small everyday decisions and how every single day we're faced with a bunch of tiny decisions. And if we can make every one of those decisions right and intentional, then that can make a positive change in our finances. Now, before I buy anything, I always ask myself questions. And these questions will determine whether or not I buy something. And in this video, I want to share those questions. And I think that if you start asking yourself these questions, you can ultimately save a lot of money. So here are 10 questions I ask myself before buying something. Question 1. I make blank an hour. Is this item worth 1 hour of my labor? Ladies and gentlemen, I am not rich. In fact, for a big chunk of my 20s, I was actually making very little, $8 to be exact. And that phase of my life taught me how difficult it is to make money. But it also taught me how easy it is to keep money. And when I was making so little, before I would buy anything, whether that was a meal at a fast food restaurant or some spontaneous thing at Target, I would always ask myself, I make $8 an hour. Is this $8 item worth 1 hour of my labor? It took me 1 hour of backbreaking work in the restaurant industry to make $8. I still get nightmares about it, ladies and gentlemen. But if I bought a sandwich for $8, then 1 hour of my labor would be gone instantly. And would that sandwich be worth the effort it took to make that $8? Never. When you start asking yourself this question, especially when you're making very little, you'll find it very hard to justify a lot of your spending. Time is money, and when you waste your money, you waste your time. Question 2. Is anyone influencing my decision? We're flooded with advertisements, sponsored content, and portrayals of luxurious lifestyles every day. And after you consume so much of that content, you subconsciously get influenced by it. And you start thinking that you want those things, or I argue, you start thinking you need those things. And before you buy anything, especially if it's online, you have to ask yourself, is anyone influencing my decision? You know, I think that we buy a lot of things just because we're subconsciously influenced by other people, whether that's in the real world or online. And we're sold this narrative that life will be better or life will be easier if we buy a certain product. But you have to make sure it's what you want and you're not just getting it because you've been influenced by someone else, because there's a lot of self-interest with influencing. And there's nothing wrong with buying anything, but you have to make sure that it's what you want and not just get it because you've been influenced into buying it. Question 3. Would my life be worse without spending this money? When I first thought about how I'm going to phrase this question, I originally thought about phrasing it, is this going to improve my life? But then I realized that the answer to that question would always be yes. For example, if I wanted to buy a new set of rags because my old ones were getting old, then yes, it would improve my life, but it wouldn't change my life that drastically. So instead, it's better to phrase this question. Would my life be worse without spending this money? I believe in saving money, but I don't believe in saving money when it worsens your quality of life. For example, and I hope that I didn't leave you guys hanging on this one, but I recently got my car back. I got a new engine and a couple of other things, and it cost me a total of $7,000. And although it sucks to part with that money, it was a good decision. And the reason it was a good decision is because if I decided to save that money and go without a car, my life quality would have worsened. So instead of trying to find ways to spend more money to improve your life, make sure that you're not saving money to worsen your quality of life. Question 4. What are the costs outside of money? When we buy things, we often think that the only cost of the item is money. But the reality is there are many costs outside of money when you get something. There's the clutter of the item. There's the maintenance of the item. There's the stress of the item. For example, if you decide to buy a lamp spontaneously at Target, sure, you lose your money, but you also have clutter now, and that clutter comes with stress. So it's important to ask yourself, what are the costs outside of money? Once you hand over the money, there are still many other costs. You have the stress, the worry, and the clutter of the item. And sometimes those costs can dwarf the monetary cost of the thing. So it's important to ask yourself this question because sometimes the money aspect is the least of your worries. Question 5. Once I buy this, am I done spending money on it? My mom once told me, Agustin, the second happiest day of your life is when you buy a boat. The happiest day of your life is when you sell the boat. And that's because boats are a never-ending expense. You know, my mom, she watches all my videos. My dad, he says he does. I don't think he does. He never asks me any questions, ladies and gentlemen. But there are some things that you spend money on that are a never-ending expense. They're money pits because they constantly require maintenance, upkeep, and upgrading, and you'll never stop spending money on them. So it's important to ask yourself, once I buy this, am I done spending money? And if the answer is no, then ask yourself, am I willing to keep spending money on this? Certain things in this world are money pits, and once you have it, you keep spending and spending and spending. And sometimes it's worth it, but you have to ask yourself this question before you get it. Otherwise, it will cost you a lot of money. Question 6. Did I come here with the intention of buying this? One really silly thing that people do with their money is go to the store without knowing what they're going to buy. They're just looking for that one item that's going to make them feel complete. But you should always shop with intention. You should always shop saying, I'm getting 1, 2, and 3. And if you're at the store and you find something and you pick it up and you really like it, you should ask yourself, did I come here with the intention of buying this? And if the answer is no, you put that back on the shelf and you go home and you think about it. That item will be there when you come back because there's no shortage of crap in this world. So shop intentionally and don't just buy stuff for the excitement in the purchase. Question 7. In 6 months, where will this item be located in my house? One thing that we just cannot get enough of is crap. We love going to Target and getting a decoration, a new towel for our towel collection and a million other things. And we love this thrill that involves in buying. We love picking something out and saying, this is gonna look good in my living room. But before you buy anything, it's important to ask yourself, in 6 months, where will this item be located in my house? You have to ask yourself this question because most of the time, these spontaneous things that we buy just end up becoming clutter in an attic or in the storage unit. That fake bamboo plant that you thought that would look great in your living room is now just collecting dust in the attic. Most of the stuff we buy is just for the excitement involved in the purchase. But months after we buy it, it just ends up collecting dust in an attic or a storage unit. So ask yourself this question. And if you're not 100% on the answer, then it will probably end up being clutter. Question 8. Could I save money by spending more? I love saving money, but I think that sometimes saving money can be counterproductive. Because if you're always trying to save money, you just end up with a bunch of things that are very low quality. So whenever you buy something, especially when it's something that's going to last you a long time, you should ask yourself, could I save money by spending more? For example, when I recently got my car engine replaced, I was given 2 options. The first option was an engine with 57,000 miles on it. The second option was an engine with 130,000 miles on it for $1,000 less. And obviously, I chose to get the engine with the lower mileage because although I'm spending more money, that engine should, and nothing is guaranteed, it should last me much longer and ultimately save me more money in the long term. Sometimes when you try to be cheap and save money, you end up setting yourself to buy more and spend more because you just have a bunch of low quality items. But if you spend for quality, you ultimately save money in the long term because the things last longer. Question 9. Am I buying this for myself or for other people? There are certain things in this world that I don't believe people are actually buying for themselves. I think that people are buying it for status symbols, to impress other people. For example, Rolex watches, designer clothes, sports cars. I think that all these are status symbols to impress other people, and people aren't getting them for themselves. So it's important to ask yourself the question, am I buying this for myself or for other people? And if it takes you more than 2 seconds to answer that question, then you're probably buying it for other people. I think that we're all very similar. And I think that we're all just worried about what other people think of us. And we all have our own worries and concerns and stresses in our lives. And ultimately, I don't think that anybody cares about what car you drive, what watch you have, or how big your house is. If you want to have those things, there's no problem about those things if you can afford it. But get them for you, not for someone else. Question 10. Are my saving habits becoming toxic? As much as I preach saving and anti-consumerism, I am not an extreme person. I practice what I preach, but I always try to never go too far with it. Sometimes I buy prepared sandwiches. Sometimes I buy things I don't need. And ladies and gentlemen, I use Uber Eats twice a week. Just kidding on that last one. Can you imagine if I did that? But it's important to make sure that your saving habits aren't becoming toxic and constantly be asking yourself, are my saving habits becoming toxic? You have to find a balance. And the reality of trying to find a balance is that you never find it. You're always learning. Don't be too hard on yourself, ladies and gentlemen, and don't follow any advice too far because that is when it becomes toxic. Save money, but don't go crazy now. And with that, muchas gracias. Que tengan un buen día. Nos vemos, chicos.